If you are a fan of the Dive Bar Rockstar podcast and would like to help support the show, there's a great way that you can do that and start a new fashion trend. We have a new merchandise page on the website which features t-shirts and hoodies that are available for sale on Amazon. Just click on merchandise in the top menu and all of the links will be there, or go directly to divebarrockstar.com/merchandise. Get started early on your Christmas shopping at divebarrockstar.com. Welcome to the Dive Bar Rockstar podcast, a show exploring the lives of professional musicians of all types, touring musicians, recording artists, songwriters, engineers, bar bands, wedding bands, and anyone making their living in the music industry. Whether you've dreamed of being a professional or you already are one, this is the podcast for you. I'm your host, Eric Baines, and I hope that you not only find some entertainment here, but also some helpful tips, trade secrets, and ideas that will help you achieve your dreams. Well, I'm not sure what number we're on, but we're on yet another lockdown here in LA, a stay-at-home order, and COVID continues to just totally screw up everything. So, it's probably providing you a lot of good, cozy space to listen to a podcast. So maybe that's what you're doing right now, and I will try my best to entertain you probably for the next hour and a half if you're up for it. So here we go. Let's just get into it. My guest today is a multi-instrumentalist in a very true sense of the word. He sometimes can be found playing more than one instrument at a time even, and I don't mean just playing drums. He excels at many instruments, including guitar, keyboards, bass, drums, saxophone, and he sings like a bird. He's toured with Survivor, The Babies, Great White, Denny Lane, Eagles of Death Metal, LA Guns, just to name a few. He's also a composer and an orchestrator for a couple of really cool shows, like Cirque Musica and A Night of Symphonic Rock and Rewind, which is music of the 80s. And he toured last summer with a really cool Prince Orchestra tribute show. He's also in the house band at the world-famous Whiskey A Go-Go Ultimate Jam Night, which used to happen on Tuesday nights in Hollywood before everything shut down because of COVID. And hopefully he will again once everything is cool. And he's got a YouTube channel where, among other things, he'll do covers and play all the instruments and film himself. And he picks really neat covers. It's definitely worth checking out. Sometimes he even has guests, and we're working on one. So keep an eye out for that in the near future. Anyway, he's an amazing guy, and he's an incredible musician. So please enjoy my conversation with Walter INO. You are like the ultimate utility guy. You play so many instruments, and you play them at a high level, like probably more than any utility guy that I know. Most people have their main thing, and then they kind of do this and they kind of do that. You've got a few main things, like keys, guitar, vocals for sure, drums, bass, saxophone, very odd thing.
I wouldn't say I'm the best sax player in the world.
But you can play it. You can get a tone. It's in tune. I saw you playing stand-up bass on Facebook the other day.
Oh, yeah. That just so happened. I was filling in on a gig for keyboards for my friend who's got a Johnny Cash show, Sean Barker, Man in Black show.
Oh, cool.
He's, based out of Vegas, or he was based out of Vegas. Now he's in Branson because of the pandemic. But they kept a few shows on the books, and usually I filled in on the show before just on keyboards, which is a great gig for me because there's hardly any keyboards on, and it's awesome. I just get to chill out and go to different cities and play a few songs. There's a song on harmonica too, but then bass player Shane Solosky got sick the 2 days before we had to leave.
Oh, wow.
And they didn't have any, Sean, he's like, oh, I need you to fill in on bass. I'm like, all right. But he's like, do you think you could do some of the key stuff that are important while you do it? I'm like, sure. So I'm playing, it's all Johnny Cash, a 1, 5, 1, 5.
Right.
And I'm playing all these string lines, whatever. with my right hand, and they're like, I can't, it was a fun challenge, but having not played for real since the pandemic hit, it's like that was quite a challenge. And then there's a middle, the section in the middle where they go backwards in Johnny Cash's career and start with the upright, like the trio, the Tennessee trio.
Right.
So I'm sitting there, and they provide the back line, and I've messed around on an upright, before.
Mm-hmm.
But can't say that I'm a player, but we got there and did for line check, and that's the first time I played an upright.
Wow.
And it was great. Luckily my ear was working, so
right.
Slide it up a little bit to get it intonated, but
yeah, because
it's fun.
Different beast.
My hands were tired after that.
Oh man. And
yeah.
Fingers bleeding.
Yeah.
I mean, how much of the show did you have to play?
It's 3 songs.
But that
still.
could do it.
Oh, it was tough, man. But I accept the challenge. I like learning instruments. I was a bored kid, I guess.
Yeah. So where did it start? You started on.
It started in Pittsburgh, and I started on piano. My 2 older brothers were in piano lessons, and I guess whenever I was 5, I wasn't really taking lessons, but I was kind of mimicking them while they were taking lessons. And so my parents, who are musical as well, and my grandmother was a piano teacher in the Philippines, and it started there. And I guess I started officially taking a piano lesson at 6, and then they kind of quit. I kept on going for a little bit, and then elementary school, you get asked if you want to play in a band and concert band. So I picked the saxophone because my brother was playing trumpet already, and my other brother was playing clarinet in that. So I picked up a saxophone, and I played it all through, up to my senior year in high school. I started getting interested in music from that point on. Basically, there was always music in the house, like you said. Right. I talk about the Beatles a lot, and I talk about Elvis because that's what was in my house all the time. My parents, would listen to Beatles records, and they had the Beatles collection on vinyl, and that's what I grew up on. So that's where I got to hear harmonies and learn arrangements and stuff. But then 14, that's when I got a guitar, and because my older brothers again. My oldest brother he got into synthesizers, and then my other brother, my middle brother, he started playing drums. So let's start the Jackson family band. so initially my dad wanted to buy me a bass. So he bought himself a bass, thinking, I guess it'd be like, whatever, the Partridge Family.
Right.
And basically what happened was my brother, the middle brother, my brother closest to me, we ended up just jamming every night. Mm-hmm. We would pick an album and just try to figure it out. And,
that's cool.
And he played drums and I played guitar because he had some good friends of his that played guitar and bass as well. And that's how it started, basically.
Yeah.
Yeah. And to this day, I can play Rush's Exit Stage Left album from beginning to end because of that.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
And that's the music you start with. That's a good foundation.
It's weird. That was a weird thing. It was my oldest brother. He turned me on to Rush even before I played a guitar.
So which one would you say was like your best? What do you feel the most comfortable on? Instrument. Yeah.
I think it all depends on the gig,
Yeah.
Like I would say, because for a long time I quit playing keyboards.
Oh, really?
Yeah. I mean, I would play, but I wouldn't play professionally. I wasn't until I really wanted to take guitar seriously for a long time. And when I taught right after high school, I never went to college. I got accepted to Berkeley, but never went. I broke my hand. I was skateboarding as a kid. Oh. And when I was 19, and then I was like, well, I can't play guitar, and that sucks because that's all I want to do. So I basically gave up every instrument except for maybe bass, and practiced guitar religiously to build up my hand for a while. So then I guess, yes, it would be that. But then, like I said, it depends on the gig. If somebody says, well, let's, play some standards, I'm like, no. That's, I mean, I could fake some, but it's like, it's not my strongest suit. And I could probably read charts better on piano than, So it all depends, like I said, on the gig. And Piano, I was never really the improviser or whatever, because I studied classical piano as a kid, and then I would learn Beatles songs by reading music and stuff. So my strong suit with keyboards is learning parts and playing them. I'm not much of a jammer, or somebody says, let's just open up. I mean, I'd try, but I honestly say it's not my strongest. So I don't know. I guess guitar.
Okay. That's cool.
Yeah.
There's no right or wrong answer, man.
You'll
pass.
But I could say bass too, because I love.
Just don't say that around me.
No. Just
because nothing because of your ability, just because there's another guy taking my gigs.
I consider myself the best bass player in LA. No,
you might be. No. You might be. I'm just saying.
Yeah, right.
Can't you just stick to guitar because you're really good at that too?
No, but have you met half the guitar players in the city? There's so many great players that it makes me feel like I need to practice or just quit. So
well, that's honestly why I moved here, because I wanted to get my ass kicked on a regular basis.
Yeah,
I wanted to be in this kind of thing where you can't really rest.
Yeah.
You got to keep your chops up, and you got to, it's exhilarating and scary all at the same time, especially when it's your living.
I mean, yes, but the good thing is there's community here, and there has been community here. You look at drummers, it's like there's the drum hangs, and then I see some bass hangs or this and that every once in a while. It's like, that's a great community, because if you can't do something, then you recommend it to somebody else that does what you do, or does what you do better, or needs the work, whatever. So that it's been a good thing for me to witness since I moved here. So
that's cool. So how was the music community in Pittsburgh? I mean, were you a part of the scene out there before you came out here?
I was, in a way. For anybody listening in Pittsburgh, you might remember some of the stuff. But there was in the 90s, when I was kind of just getting going, there was a pretty cool scene. Pittsburgh had its thing. But at the same time, it was very competitive. Like there was a lot of trash talking. You're a band, this and that, from what I remember. But I was always Switzerland with all this stuff. I was always friends with everybody in bands,
right?
But and now it's like, from what I hear, it's so much cooler. But Pittsburgh had a great scene. There was bands like Rusted Root who made it big and paved the way for later on for bands like us. I started off playing in this band called Seventh House. Actually, before that, when I was in high school, there was a guy a couple years older than me. His name was Scott Riebling. He went to Berkeley and started this band called Letters to Cleo, which became big. But when he left Pittsburgh, he knew that I wanted to kind of play. And he actually he recorded one of my early high school band stuff, and he really wanted to get in production. So then he gave me his gigs when he left. So there was a band called Nixon Clocks. So I was a bass player in the first bigger band that I played with in Pittsburgh, and I was 14 playing bars.
Wow.
And then because of him, I wanted to keep on doing it, basically. And he actually gave me a lot of his old books from Berkeley. So I was kind of a nerd when it came to that stuff. It led me to playing with my friend Matt Muckle. He's a drummer that was out here for a while. He's back in Pittsburgh. And he asked me to play with this other band that he was in called The Left. And that was a guitar gig. So I played guitar for that. And then next thing you know, he quit that band and joined this band called Seventh House, which had a name already going around Pittsburgh. And so when their guitar player quit, he's like, I got the guy. And by this point, I'm 19-ish, 19 and a half. Yeah, over 19 years old. And then we started building a following. We would sell out, just from that point, from 90, whatever year this was, we started just kind of hitting the streets, doing the flyering, and all these kids would come out to see us play. And 300 people show up. Next thing you know, 500 people show up. Next thing you know, 1,000 people show up. And then we'd space it out every 3 months or 6 months, and have sellout shows, and started getting interest when it comes to labels and whatever.
Right.
So and I was never playing covers or anything. I was doing nothing but originals.
Oh, cool.
With bands I was in.
Right.
The radio station started playing some of the stuff we were in. Back then, it wasn't so corporate, so program directors could pick and choose what they wanted to play. We started getting hooked up with managers and other booking agents from outside that city. So then we'd trade shows with other big bands from other cities, like Fuel was from Harrisburg. So they'd come to Pittsburgh and open for us, and we'd go to Harrisburg and open for them, or we'd go down to Virginia. And, from that area in Pittsburgh, it's like a pretty good diameter. We played Cleveland a lot. We played Philly. We played Erie and Harrisburg and DC and Baltimore. So it was kind of a cool little thing.
Yeah.
And to the point where we would play every Monday at CBGB's in New York City.
Wow.
And labels would come. And then it was some crazy stuff. We would do crazy things where we would rent buses. Like we would charter a bus, and bring up 50 kids from Pittsburgh. And I won't tell any of those stories because those bus stories are legendary. Just stuff that shouldn't be happening when you're on a bus.
Right.
But, we would just do showcases. And finally in 99, we signed a record deal. And
which you could still do in the 90s.
You could.
That stuff still happened back then.
It's a different time, when it comes to.
And the East Coast too, it's like you just described, there's so many places to play. It's a smaller.
It was great.
I grew up in Denver, even more isolated, but even LA, it's hard to tour out of here.
Yeah.
There's Vegas, San Francisco, San Diego, kind of,
Exactly.
They're not big music towns, whereas you've got a lot of large cities and within 4 hours of each other.
And that's what was great back then, because they were all rock town. They all had their version of K-Rock, I guess, back then.
Right.
It was the X radio station over on the East Coast. And so we would do like morning shows in Harrisburg on play at 6 a.m, trying to play music, for these radio shows.
Yeah.
And it was great. And, that's where things started. And then, and after 99, we moved to New York. That's basically where the label was, and where, that's where I started getting into, because I was focusing on guitar, but then I would record, my own stuff at home, just kind of write stuff too, separately from the band. And 3 months before we signed the record deal, the drummer quit. So we got this deal. And it was Atlantic Records based thing. It was a label called Blackbird, which was on Sire before, but then they moved to Atlantic. So, we were one of the first bands for them at Atlantic. And then we didn't have a full band. It was just a duo now.
Right.
And as we're shopping for producers, they're like, well, what albums do you like? Well, who would you want to produce the record? So I started checking out all these different producers and albums. We got a guy out of DC, Jim Ebert. He's still awesome. And I learned a lot from him. And, but I ended up playing drums on the record too. So it was one of those things where just two of us. So they're like, "What? Play the drums." So I played drums, guitars, and sung keys on that record, and sang the background vocals.
So when did you get your sights on LA? And what brought you out
that band took me out here. I played out here. We played House of Blues with
which isn't there anymore.
The one in Hollywood. And then we played the Viper Room. We played a couple. There was Hard Rock they had a venue somewhere else in LA. Was it the Beverly Center?
Oh yeah.
We played the Hard Rock Cafe.
Yeah.
At the Beverly Center too. And then we did
I
forget, we did some other gigs and Warped Tours and stuff like that. Out here. So LA kind of called my, I would visit a lot when I was a kid because my cousins were out here, and I always loved it. And I always knew that I would eventually come out and have a DeLorean and go back in time at the Twin Pines Mall. That was my goal, man. That was my thing. I loved Marty McFly. So, I always wanted to. And then I was in Pittsburgh. I was married before. I got married in 2005. By that point, the band was broken up. Record deal was lost. And basically, in 2001, Time Warner and AOL merged. Big corporations. And this is all stuff I never had to think about in my life.
Right.
But then all of a sudden I did. So whenever Time Warner and AOL merged, who are, and Time Warner's mother company to Atlantic Records.
Right.
They're like, who are the bands that aren't doing crap? Let's get rid of them. So we were dropped.
Trim the fat.
Yeah, we were. I was definitely the fat. And then, so we were shopping. You know, we had a great team. We had a great lawyer, and that was talking to labels for us. And in September of that year, we were getting ready to ink a deal with Geffen Records, and so we met at his office on Monday, September 10th, 2001.
Oh man!
9/11 hit the next day. And we didn't hear from anybody for 6 months.
Wow.
So, and that's, by that point, we were just like, and we hated each other by that point. The band was so sick of each other, or at least I was. I couldn't take some things. So I was ready to kind of bust out. So I went back home to Pittsburgh in late 2002. I rode my motorcycle home and just stayed. And then, and you know, and the girl I was with at the time, she was a flight attendant and this and that. But after 9/11, took a furlough. So we all went back to Pittsburgh. And that's when I started my own original stuff in 2003 and focused on that. Started my own little label.
Oh, cool.
Released 2 records and toured around a little bit, played with some great bands, took it to Europe. And
cool.
Just some tiny little victories for myself, just because I wrote the first record in 2 weeks.
Wow.
And found a band to play with there in Pittsburgh who I still love, and then they're still my friends and brothers in music. But I still kept in touch with people in LA and this and that, bands. And by that point, they were like, you should come out to LA. This guy, Barry Squire, I'm sure everyone in LA knows who he is. You got to get on his radar, especially now that you're doing keyboards and guitar. So I flew out. Vanessa Carlton needed a guitar player for this European thing. And so I somehow set up the thing. I forget if I just cold called Barry or something. I'm like, hey, I'm in Pittsburgh. Or somebody told him about me and said expect a call from me or whatever. I forget how it worked out. Next thing I know, I'm flying from Pittsburgh to LA to audition for Vanessa, and everything went well. It was great. And it was like I got to meet, the band was awesome. Nate Morton was on drums, and
cool.
Sasha was on bass, and they, of course, they ended up on The Voice after that.
Right.
But they said, yeah, I think you're the guy for the gig. It's gonna be great. Next thing you know, they canceled the tour because she was focusing on something else. So I never did it. So I was like, well, I'm not gonna move to LA, and because I was focusing on different things at the time. That's when I was really focused on writing my own stuff at the time. So I didn't really just kind of want to be a hired hand at the time. But then after I started getting hired to do stuff as a utility guy, that's when maybe 5 years later, that's when I was like, okay, maybe I should. So then I flew back out to LA a couple times. Somebody called me or Barry called or something. They're like, you got to try out for The Offspring. I'm like, okay. So I flew out to LA and tried out for The Offspring. I mean, there wasn't a lot of people that did it, I guess. I heard. Of course, I didn't get it, but it was great. It was like, okay, I think I could start doing this now. My head's getting in the game. So then they were like, maybe I think Pink or something like that was doing an audition. So I flew out. I obviously didn't get that, but it just turned into, it was one of those things. I remember this exactly because I wasn't living here. I was kind of going through a tumultuous time at home. So I'm like, I'm just going to see what's going on out here. They're like, and my friend Matt was still living here at the time. And he's like, let's go out. Let's see what's happening. And so at the time, I forget what they called that band, but Stephen Perkins and Eric Dover and Gilby Clark, they were playing the Dragonfly. And I'm like, let's go. So we went out, and it changed. That would change my life a little bit, and because I met my friend Shane Solosky there, who you know, and
studio owner, bass player, extraordinaire.
He's one of the reasons why I'm working out here, because he was like, he knew. To make the story short, we met at the Dragonfly, and towards the end of the night, he's like, oh, "Man, I got to go to Poland in a week." I'm like, "What are you doing there?" He's like, "I do this cover gig." I'm like, "Oh, okay, cool." It's like this 3-week gig with this girl Jenny Galt, who was on the Rockstar NXS or Supernova, one of those shows that was happening at the time. She was the singer, and then he was like, "Man, do you know anybody that plays guitar and sings?" I'm like, I do. I don't think he knew I was a musician at the time.
Right.
I'm like, I do that. He's like, and he asked my friend Matt, he's like, does you do that? He's like, yeah, he's great. And so next thing you know, a week and a half from that night, I'm on a plane. I meet Shane in Chicago, and I spent 3 weeks with him in Poland.
Wow.
And it was a learning experience for me. And he was like, you got to come to LA, dude, because you'll get work.
That is so cool.
So we did one more of those. I think I was still in Pittsburgh. Yeah. A couple months later, and it was a great gig. It's fun. It was just a stupid hotel gig.
Yeah.
And it was awesome, and because it was at the Sheraton in Warsaw, Poland, which is one of the most amazing cities on the planet.
Yeah.
And if you've never been to Warsaw, go. It's beautiful.
Yeah.
But don't go in the wintertime because it sucks. But it's beautiful. The people there are great. I learned a lot. And then all these great bands would come in to the hotel. And, I'm playing guitar up there. And next thing you know, Steve Howe's in front of me.
Wow.
And I was like, what? Are you kidding me? And he was pointing at me. He's like, dude, that was a great solo you played. I'm like, oh my God, you're Steve Howe. So I got nervous, and I started playing the clap, like when all these songs that I used to play on from Yes. And he runs up on stage and gives me a big hug. And next thing you know, he's like, what are you doing? Come to the show. It was Asia was playing at the bigger venue, obviously. And so we went. It was awesome. Got hooked up. And they were staying at the hotel, and I'd see him the next morning. He's like, Walter, come sit down. Let's have coffee. And same thing happened with this other great band called Opeth, like a heavy band. They're awesome. But that was a great band that I became friends with, and I've seen since and kept in touch with since. But it was a great experience.
Yeah.
So I started.
And you're in one place for 3 weeks.
I'm in one place.
This is a great thing.
It was weird. It was one of the weirdest things for me ever, because I never thought I would do anything like that.
Yeah.
But it's almost like a cruise ship gig, but you're stuck. And it was weird because.
But you get to see the town. You get to kind of really know the town.
Yeah, and I did.
For so long.
I thought it was beautiful. I learned the history. We took tours of like, what did they call that tour? The Resurrection Tour or something like that. Because and I'm thinking, when I was 14 years old, I went to Russia on a little arts scholarship thing, playing classical piano.
Gotcha.
And I'm thinking I'm going to go to Poland, and it's going to be like my trip in Russia, where hygiene's different back then, and everything's whatever. And I get there, and it's nothing but neon lights and industry and beautiful gardens and this and that. And so you learn the history about these cities, and it's like, they're like, well, everybody in this town is under 40. Like 70% of people are under 40 because 40 years ago, the war happened.
Right.
Or whatever. And all the older people died.
Yeah.
So like 70% of the city, like you see those walls over there, they're saying it's like, these are everything from that wall up is all brand new. They kept a little bit of the old walls because they were all damaged during the wars. I'm like,
right.
So it was a great thing.
Yeah,
it was really cool,
and I love that stuff too.
Yeah,
you're a history guy.
Oh, not really, but I appreciated it.
Yeah,
because then I took a train to Auschwitz. When you start learning about it
if you're that close.
I did it, and it was eye-opening, and I always hated history, but I like when I was in school.
Yeah.
But I've always was fascinated by actual events.
Yeah.
So being in Europe like that was great.
Yeah. I played in Hawaii. I went to Pearl Harbor.
Yep.
And Hiroshima in the same year.
Oh my goodness.
And that's just do that. It'll give you a different perspective on history, when
That's
you're
heavy.
like, oh, Pearl Harbor, tragic, horrible.
Hiroshima.
3,000 people, military people mostly.
Yeah.
Then go to Hiroshima and in a second, in a fraction of a second, 80,000 people gone. A month later, 150,000 people gone, mostly civilians, but it's the same thing where you stand in the middle of town, and it's huge to this day, and you look as far as you can see, and it was gone in a fraction of a second.
That's crazy.
Pretty.
Yeah.
But I was always sort of a history person, but when you start to travel internationally, it gets in you.
Well, I don't like when people go on tours and don't appreciate the cities they're in.
Yeah.
It's like, why go and spend the night in a hotel or I'm like, well, I was in Boston with the band that I was in for a while. Actually, I shouldn't even say their name because they're like fancy, they would, they wrote The Eye of the Tiger. Anyways.
Well, you got to say their name is the next on the list to talk about.
Was it? Okay.
We don't have to.
But it's like one of those things where it's like, we could talk about it, but it's one of those things where, I'm like, we're in Boston. I'm going to go get some chowder or something.
Yeah.
And they're like, no, we're going to stay it. I'm just going to stay it and grab a salad at the bar. I'm like, I'm in Boston, man.
Right.
Like, you can get a salmon salad anywhere or whatever.
Exactly.
So one of those type of things. History. So because of Shane, Solowski, rewind stuff, he's like, you got to come to LA. I moved to Huntington Beach, California, was teaching at a music school at Fountain Valley.
Having never gone to college?
No, never went to college. But I taught music stores in Pittsburgh, I had like 60 students a week.
Wow.
Like just teaching.
Gotcha.
And so I never.
So you had a resume.
I had a resume, but like I said, you're right. I never went to college. And a lot of me thought, well, maybe I shouldn't, are they going to trust me? So I did have to try out for the lady. She's like, because I was coaching bands, teaching guitar, voice and piano. And the lady that ran that school was like this Russian virtuoso. And so she's like, just play down or sit down and play something, or can you read this? And of course I messed it up, but they hired me anyway.
Well, so you got to LA.
I got to Orange County.
Right.
Yes, I was living in Huntington Beach in my tiny little apartment, teaching at this school. And Shane kept in touch with me. And he's like, hey man, you got to come out, this and that. We play this bar in Huntington Beach every Sunday night, this place called Killarney's. And it's Eric Dover. I'm like, I know, man. I've seen Eric Dover play. So it's me and Eric Dover and Mitchell Sigmund on keyboards, and just come hang out and sit in. We'll have you come up and sing a song with us. I'm like, cool. So Sunday nights. So I started showing up there every Sunday.
Oh, that's cool.
And next thing I know, I'm sitting in, singing, playing. A month and a half later, basically, from when I moved in, Mitchell, the keyboard player, is like, I'm moving to Vegas. I'm doing this thing. I'm focusing on this project that I have going on in Vegas. But I can't do this tour with the band I'm in, the band Survivor. Do you want to fill in? I'm like, sure, I could. I remember I remember two songs from them, and so I learned the songs, and next thing you know, I'm on stage with them, and Robin McCauley, sweetheart singer, was singing for the band at the time, and played the Alameda County Fair that June. So within 3 months, I played that gig, and next thing you know, I get a call from Mitch, God bless him. He's like, hey man, I heard that you took the gig.
Whoa.
I'm like, I never said anything. I'm like, what? He said, take it.
Wow.
It's they want you. You did a great job. I can't focus on that right at the time. I want to focus on the thing I'm working on at the time. I said, really? And he said, take it, do it. It's going to be good. So next thing you know, I'm in that band, and it was a wonderful band. I mean, it took me great places. It introduced me to a lot of great people.
Yeah.
Rob McCauley, the original singers are on. David Bickler for Survivor, and Jimmy Jameson.
And you were in it with Jimmy Jameson as well, right?
Yes, I am the only keyboard player that played. I mean, they had dozens of keyboard players in that band. I'm the only one that played with all of the singers.
Wow, that's pretty cool.
From Rob McCauley, David Bickler, Jimmy Jameson, and the new kid, Cameron. His name's Cameron. And so I'm the only keyboard that played with keyboards that played with all the singers.
That's cool.
He did great. It was fun. So,
and how many shows a year was?
They probably did maybe 35.
Yeah.
Gotcha. I mean, the first year was I might have been, when I was in with them, might have done 20, and then it started. That was Robin. And then next thing you know, Jimmy's back in the band. And so they started booking a couple more. So it was like 35. And then the next year after that, they were like, we got to get Jimmy and David in the band. The guys that both sang the hits. So David sang Eye of the Tiger, and Jimmy sang like the ballad, The High on You, and Search Is Over. Which was great. Which was really good. That's when we went to Europe. 2013. We went, did a lot of great shows with a lot of amazing bands. We always played with amazing bands, but yeah. And then Jimmy died in 2014, and we were playing in San Francisco the night before, and we all went home because we had a week off, and we were gonna, it was basically weekends, and so like sometimes we'd have a week or two off, and next thing we were supposed, he's like, "See you in Denver," and next thing you know, he didn't wake up. So that gave us about a year off.
Yeah.
And while they were trying to do stuff, and that for me was kind of interesting time for me, because I got calls, which were really awesome, but at the same time heartbreaking. I got the call to audition for, the band that wrote Barracuda, and These Dreams and stuff, and it was great. It was one of those things. That's when I started going out again, thinking I better start networking in case something happens. Right. So I started showing up at this place called the Kibitz Room, and became friends with those guys immediately. And my friend Dan was like, "What are you doing tomorrow?" I'm like, "I don't know." He's like, "Learn these songs, show up." So they called four keyboard players, and I thought it was great, but it was heartbreaking. I thought I had it, but it was just one of those learning experiences. Yeah. But it gave me some time to do some stuff. I started playing with Denny Lane right after that, which is now we're talking my roots.
Mm-hmm. Right.
You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So
my only picture on the walls, besides myself, of course, is Paul McCartney.
I thought that was me for a second. No.
Signed by his hand.
That's great. So he actually signed it to you?
No.
Oh, okay. I thought
my wife bought it at an auction, but that was my wedding gift from my wife.
Why does it say Pablo? No, that's amazing. So yeah, that was a dream. Like, that was awesome. Yeah. I got my friend Brian Pothier called me up. Do you know Brian?
Well, yeah, because I did a gig with Peter Asher.
Well, there you go.
And
because of that, I got to back up Peter Asher. I got to back up Terry Alexander from the Hollies, and the Archies, and all these great artists, and it was awesome. I mean, and the first thing I did was we did the Band on the Run tour. So we played Band on the Run from top to bottom, which was amazing for me. That's because so cool. Now you're talking my language. That's my stuff. I love anything McCartney does. Yeah, and for the most part, right. And just hanging out with Denny and hearing stories, it just it made me feel good at a really kind of a dark time for me, and it was great, And then other gigs started popping up. Played bass for Jack Russell for Great White. Oh yeah, for a few gigs.
Saw that on a bio.
Yeah, it was and they were like, "Do you want to join the band?" I'm like, and that's and Survivor started calling again. I'm like, I better not, because I've already had my my thing with these guys, and so then the right guy got it. It wasn't particularly my
right. Yeah, I actually Musicians Contact. Do you know about that?
No, I don't.
So it's a website now, but when I first moved here, it's basically a networking thing where when I first moved here, it was all on the phone. Yeah. So you would dial in and leave a message, and then you'd like play a little piece of your demo, onto the phone.
Are you serious?
And it would put it on an answering service.
Wow.
And people who were, you paid a monthly fee to stay on there, and you could also check gig listings over the phone. Now it's all on a website, but one of them was Jack Russell when I first moved out here.
Really?
And I was kind of the same thing. It was like I had other things going on, and wasn't really my thing, but it would have been cool. But then there's something else just popped up, and I saw another friend of mine had moved here from Denver, and I was like, "Here, go check this out to get this gig. You'd be perfect." Anyways, probably a year and a half before the tragedy, friends of mine were on that gig.
Oh boy.
And or had just got off the gig as well. Like it was just one of those things where I'm the kind of guy that when I get a gig, I stay on a gig. Yeah. You know what I mean? So who knows? I feel like in a way I dodged a bullet.
Yeah. That's crazy.
But that's interesting that you did it as well on bass.
on bass. Yeah. It was fun. I love those guys. I mean, we're still friends.
So there are a lot of us out of work right now, waiting to get back to playing shows and touring. And I know I've had to do whatever I can do to take my mind off the situation from time to time. And one of the ways to pass the time is to catch up on some books you've missed. But if you're like me and you don't love to read, there's another way you can consume. Audible.com has thousands of titles to choose from, including audiobooks about music production, songwriting, the music business, music theory, instructional audiobooks, and biographies of your favorite musical heroes. But besides audiobooks, you can also listen to podcasts, theatrical performances, A-list comedy, and exclusive audio originals you won't find anywhere else. Right now, you can get a free 30-day trial if you visit audibletrial.com/divebarrockstar. That's audibletrial.com/divebarrockstar, and you can catch up on your audio reading. I'd like to take a second to thank you for listening to the Dive Bar Rockstar podcast. As a new podcast, getting the word out is a vital part of what it takes to keep the show on the road, or off the road, as the current case may be. If you would like to support the podcast, all you got to do is subscribe wherever you listen. And if you have an extra minute or two, please leave a review. You can also share and follow the podcast on your social media apps. Okay, enough begging. I hope you're having fun. And once again, thank you for listening. And Jimmy Jameson seems so cool. Was he a cool guy?
He was one of my favorite. He was amazing.
Like when you hear him sing, you're like, oh, this rock god voice is coming out. Then you hear him talk, and he's just
the southern.
He's just a good old boy.
Dude, that's exactly it. He would. We had an instant connection. You know, it's one of those things. And if we were on the road, we'd hang out. Like he and I would go hit the bar or go to a movie or something. It was great. It was such a big thing that happened when he passed away. It was shocking, and I wasn't ready for it. And we weren't ready for it. And everyone loved him,
Ugh.
Yeah. So
it's always hard.
It was tough. That was a tough one. But then, like I said, it was kind of a blessing in a way because I networked a little bit.
Yeah.
And got to meet more people and jam with more people, and then got calls for other things too. This thing called Heart of Storm that never happened, but it did happen before. It was like this Russian ballet, rock ballet. And they did it before with Greg Bissonette on drums. It had like Tony Franklin on bass. It had Doug Aldridge on guitar, Brent Woods on guitar, and Derek Shrinian on keyboards. I got the call because I auditioned for Heart.
Oh, gotcha.
And the guy that was doing the band for that was the guy from Heart. And so that's one of those things. Yeah. He remembered me. He's like, "What are you doing in 2 days?" And I'm like, "Nothing." He's like, "Well, learn this, show up." Right. And that's it was so cool because I watched Doug Aldridge before, and I'm playing this and I'm playing to a track, and I had 2 days to learn it. And it's like kind of prog stuff. Yeah. Because Shrinian was playing it, and I was like, "Wow, this is really cool." And one of the first things I remember Doug was like, "Who are you and why don't I know you?" So that made me feel good. Yeah. So then I got the gig, and it was me, Mark Schulman drummer from Pink.
Yeah, amazing.
Rudy Sarzo on bass.
Never heard of him.
Yeah. Freaking hero. Jeff Coleman on guitar. Ridiculous. Oh, yeah. And then Tony Montana from Great White. Oh, wow. As the second guitar player, and Katja Reicherman on sax. So we rehearsed for 2 weeks straight, and nothing happened. And then just fell apart after that. But it was one of those, again, I was like, I wouldn't have never been in that circle talking to those people if it wasn't for that time in my life and the networking that I made, which was awesome.
And it also is like, no matter where you're going, what you're doing, if you're in this music town, kick ass every time you touch your instrument, because you never know.
Yes. And that's, I got another call that same day, and I was exhausted by this point. And there's what's her name? Tao.
Wilkenfeld.
Yeah. I got the call for her to do some shows. She's like, "Come over to the studio." And by this point I was burnt. And that's when I learned I shouldn't have done it. I shouldn't have gone over there because I was fried. She was wonderful. She was great, but I was not ready for that, and I was intimidating myself. I mean, I was intimidated in a way, but I was also like embarrassing myself because I couldn't hear like what I wanted to. I had no sleep because I was doing that other, like learning that other prog stuff. Because for her, she was like, don't learn anything, just come over.
Right.
Which was awesome because she's more of a vibe thing. And she really wanted to see what I would play if she plays whatever. And again, I probably should have waited a day or two or a week. Right. And not been so exhausted. So
interesting.
Yeah, that was a weird call, but like I said, thankful that I got the call, but probably shouldn't have done it.
Yeah.
But I've had a few of those.
Well, I've said it before on this podcast, but I've never gotten a gig. I've gotten one gig from an audition, and that was a show in Disneyland. But I've done plenty of auditions. I've still managed to have a pretty good career in 20 years. Yeah. But auditions are just not my thing.
I hate auditions. Yeah. I'm not big on them either. I've done a few out here, and I got a few, but I hate them.
Yeah.
I really do. It's just not. I've been lucky to have had people recommend me for stuff.
Exactly. Yeah.
When it came to like Eagles of Death Metal, I got recommended. I mean, Slim Jim is friends with, he's friends with those guys. He's Jenny, the bass player for Eagles of Death Metal, and Slim are together. And he was asking Eric Dover to do it.
Got you.
And I played with Eric Dover now since 2011, every weekend almost.
Right.
And Eric couldn't do it because he had a gig. And he's like, call Walter because he'll know the stuff. And this was a Saturday, and the first gig was on a Wednesday. And so next thing I know, because I got the call from those guys out in Connecticut doing this orchestra gig I do. I do some orchestra gigs. For we
have so many things to break down in this moment.
Okay.
In a second. We're flying through them.
I'm flying. Yeah, so it's...
But yeah, that's cool. Well, let's talk about the Eagles of Death Metal, because they're not really death metal, first of all. I hadn't heard of them before, and then when I started looking at them, I'm like, oh, well.
Paris.
I've heard of them, sort of,
Okay.
And then I watched a bunch of...
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, they're crazy. It seems like a super fun gig.
It's probably the funnest gig I've ever had in my life. It was the funnest I've been on stage, probably since my own band, like my own original music. It was amazing, and they're amazing people. They've gone through so much. I mean, just this couple of days ago was the 5th anniversary or 6th anniversary of the shootings in Paris. It's such a fun band. Jesse, the singer, is such a great front man. Learned a lot from him. It was just an amazing thing. I mean, I had 3 days to learn everything. And they write everything in a different tuning. So, which is, it's open G, but it's not, because the low E string is also a G. So basically I had to relearn how to play guitar in 3 days. And it was great. And I sat in with we met at Mates with me and the drummer and the bassist, and we just played through the stuff. I had to leave because I was playing at the Whiskey that night. So I'm like, I have an hour. Let's run through stuff. And this was a Tuesday. I had to be at the Whiskey because I committed to the Ultimate Jam Night gig, which I do every Tuesday there. I did.
Right.
And then Wednesday was the first gig with the Eagles of Death Metal, which was kind of a last minute impromptu thing they booked just because of this. They booked down in some bar called Marty's in Newport, some tiny little bar. It's probably the size of this room.
Right.
And I think it held like 300 people. And that's the first time I meet Jesse, because he wasn't at the rehearsals. And actually, no, I met Jesse because he showed up at Ultimate Jam a couple times.
Oh, gotcha.
And so I got to see him, and never really got to talk to him that much. But then next thing you know, I'm on stage with him, tiny little stage, because it was just a kind of a warm-up gig. And it was awesome. It was probably, like I said, about some of the most fun I've had playing on a stage, because of the energy that the band puts out is so raw and rock and roll.
Yeah.
It's amazing. And then next thing you know, I'm on a plane the next morning because we fly into Vancouver, and we're playing a show with Queens of the Stone Age, which was crazy. And I get on the plane, Jesse's sitting there, and first class, of course, and I walk past, and he's like, "What's up, man? Great job last night." And then Josh from Queens, he goes, "You're Walter."
Wow.
Jesse told me all about you. I'm like, you gotta be kidding me. This is so surreal. Because I love that first Queens of the Stone Age record.
Yeah.
Everything they put out.
And he co-founded the band, right? Isn't he originally?
He's the drummer. He's
right.
Technically the drummer for the band, But
he doesn't do many gigs.
No.
Because he plays with Queens of the Stone Age.
Yeah. Yeah. So yeah, and they went to high school together. I mean, I learned. I mean, again, when I joined the band, I kind of go into the history of stuff.
Their energy is almost theatrical in a way. It's a show. It's pretty cool. I was really into it.
Good
watching it on.
And the songs
YouTube.
are great. And
yeah,
one of the weirdest coincidences was I got on that plane I was telling you about, and I'm like, okay, we're flying to Vancouver. I'm sitting on, and they have movies on the back of the chair. I'm like, right. It's early, but I just want to put something on, get my mind out of stuff, because I was focusing, that whole week I was so learning the songs.
Mm-hmm.
I'm like, I just want to forget about it. Put on a movie. I put on Super Troopers 2. You seen it?
I haven't, but
Super Troopers 2. Who did the soundtrack for that?
Right, I know where you're going.
I had no idea that Eagles that they did the soundtrack.
Right,
and all the songs I just learned and was just playing with them. I'm watching on this movie. I'm like, this is the most surreal thing it was coincidental,
meant to be.
It was awesome. And again, if it wasn't for Eric Dover, I would have never experienced that.
Well, yeah.
So Shane Solowski, Eric Dover.
And Eric Dover is this amazing guitar player, singer. He's played with Jellyfish, was my favorite.
Jellyfish,
one of his credits.
And then after that, he had a band called Imperial Drag, which is amazing. That was his band.
Oh yeah,
with Roger and those guys.
Right.
And then
and didn't he play with Velvet Revolver?
No.
He
was out with Alice Cooper
for got you.
Not Velvet Revolver. He sang for Slash, Snake Pit.
The Snake Pit, right.
So he did Slash's Snake Pit for a while. And then he was on tour as Alice Cooper's guitar player for a long time.
Wow.
And then
and he's just crazy good. And he plays every weekend, generally, if he's not doing bigger and bigger stuff, at Poncho's, which gig I used to play years ago for a long time as well. And it's like the craziest, coolest bar. It comes up a bit on the podcast because so many great musicians either have played there or play there regularly. And
I was there every Wednesday night with me and Coco.
Oh, cool.
Playing acoustic
Coco
duo.
Powell, who's the regular bass player.
But he's also Poncho's, he's the bassist for Edgar Winter.
Right, yeah.
And so, yeah.
But speaking of cool bar gigs, and you kind of mentioned this before too, that you do the Ultimate Jam on Tuesdays. Well, you did. Or
I did.
You will again once everything.
So, okay, let's talk about that for a second then. At 2014, 15, I was just out on my motorcycle with Kate. We were on the back, and they were like, I heard my friends are playing at this place called Lucy's 51 in Toluca Lake.
In Toluca Lake. I went there too.
So I said, let's see what it's all about. And, we're at Echo Park. It's not that far. So we show up, and next thing you know, that was James Lomenzo was in charge of that. That was James Lomenzo's band. James, bass player.
I don't know him.
Plays with John Fogerty.
Oh.
But he was in White Lion and he was in Black Label Society back in the day.
Wow.
Awesome. I didn't know him at the time, but I met him there because I walked in and Brent Woods is on guitar, who I've met a few times. And he pointed at me. He's like, "Hey man, want to sit in?" And I forget who was, I think it was Kenny Arnoff on drums.
Oh geez.
So it's Kenny Arnoff playing every week. And so he's like, "Yeah, come sit in, play something." I'm like, "All right." So next thing you know, I'm on stage and playing this tiny little bar.
Yeah.
That on what night was that?
I think it was Wednesdays.
It was Wednesdays. Yeah.
Yeah.
On a Wednesday night. And
because the weird part about it is that jam, I think, used to happen at the Cat Club, and then the Cat Club closed down.
Well, that was a different jam.
Okay, but it was a lot of the same people.
A lot of that was the Thursday night one. That was called the Starfuckers.
Right. Yeah. But I was like, I lived in West Toluca Lake at the time.
There you go.
So I would hang out on that strip or go to Lucy 51. And then all of a sudden this jam starts and it's just all these Hollywood rocker, crazy hair band guys that still dress that way. And it was like, Hollywood dudes just invaded Burbank, and it was really cool because also everyone again is high level of playing and serious dudes that have had serious careers and they're playing in this crazy little bar in Burbank, basically, Toluca Lake. You know, it was a really cool thing.
It was really cool because, it was, all of a sudden I'm like, oh my gosh, there's so-and-so, And for me, I couldn't believe I'm playing with Kenny because, we all grew up watching him with John Cougar and actually one of the, to go way back for a second, that first band I was in, Seventh House, we were being like courted by a guy to want to manage us out of Pittsburgh. And his name was Rich Engler. He was one of the biggest promoters in Pittsburgh. They had DeCesar Engler was the promotional company. They brought in Zeppelin back in the 80s, and they brought, they were responsible for the big acts,
right?
McCartney every year, this and that, Billy Joel. And he was like, I want to manage you guys. But one morning he calls me up, it's a Saturday, I think, and he's like, hey, what are you doing tonight? I'm like, we have a gig. We're playing with this regional band at this tiny little club. He's like, what do you do before that? I'm like, I guess nothing. He's like, do you want to play the Civic Arena, which is like the big arena in Pittsburgh?
Right.
We're opening for Bob Seger.
Wow.
I'm like, let me call the guys. Let's figure it out. He's like, I'll pay you such and such money. I'm like, okay, cool. We could still make it to the other gig if we do it. So let's do it.
Wow.
So we show up, my first big gig, like huge gig, and didn't know what to do. We're used to playing in my basement, and he's like, we get up on stage, do a sound check. I'm like, I'm cool. I just need my vocals. We're playing 18,000 people are there,
right.
For sound check. They're all like laughing. It was crazy. So it was great, but who was on drums that night? Kenny Aronoff was playing with Bob Seger.
Wow.
And we stuck around for the first, 2 or 3 songs. It was amazing. And then we left and we played with this band called Over the Rhine out of Cincinnati, Ohio, in front of maybe 100 people. It was
man.
It's a crazy night. I remember
That's the coolest.
I remember it like it was yesterday
yeah.
Because the Bob Seger camp was so cool to us. They were kind of laughing because they knew that we didn't know what we were doing. So next thing you know, I think they saw my confused look because it was awesome during sound check. But then we started playing the show. I took maybe 2 steps to my left. I couldn't hear anything.
No, man.
So the monitor guy was kind of laughing, and he's like started feeding and stuff, and it was great. So anyway, and we got great reviews. The press actually gave us great reviews. Anyway, so that happened with at Toluca Lake. And next thing I know, I'm on stage with, jamming with these guys. And then a lot of times James was busy playing with John Fogerty, so he would ask Chuck Wright to come in and kind of fill in.
Right. That's when I first met Chuck was doing it.
Yeah, Chuck was basically filling in, but Chuck was very organized.
Got you.
Chuck, I learned like he would call people and said, hey, he would call me up, or somehow I got to know him because of that. And he messaged me and said, hey, do you know this song? We're planning on doing it. I'm like, sure. So he's like, why don't you play it on guitar and sing it? So for the first couple of weeks, I'm sitting there singing Saturday Night by Elton John, like every week.
Right.
And then a couple of times they were like, what do you want to play? So I started playing something and became more of a jam, but Chuck he wanted to make it more organized. He was like, I'm going to bring my friend up from, August from Dennis DeYoung up here. We're going to get him to sing a song, and we're going to get him to go, and this is the song they're going to play. And so they were more organized, which turned into, and once Lucy's closed, Chuck was like, I want to do this. And they found Lucky Strike, and they did it at Lucky Strike every week. And still they would just call me up to come and do some songs. Hey, do you know this song? Do you know that song? Do you want to play keys in this song? And Ferlazzo would, help me program keys or this and that.
Mm-hmm.
Steve Ferlazzo, yeah.
He's on a different episode. You can listen to that.
Great. I love that guy. And then whenever they decided to kind of part ways and move to the whiskey, it was the same band. It was Chuck and Mitch Perry, and Matt Starr was on the drums. And Matt's like, we got to ask Walter to play keys because he can play guitar too on the songs that need guitar or whatever.
Yeah.
So, I think they tried a few different keyboard players out for that, and they were just feeling people out. And, and then they asked me to do it permanently, which was great. It's such a great thing. It made it such a cool community. It happened every week.
Yeah.
It got me to play with some amazing people that I would never have thought I would be playing with.
Right.
And
it's cool because it is more organized. It's kind of, Lucky Strike kind of went on as well. And we talked about that with the Ferlazzo, but Chuck kind of started that thing out, and it's way more organized. It's called a jam, but it's not really. You know what you're going to do when you get there. So it's a show. It's an amazing show with every musician in town, and people that will blow your mind that will show up. And so, who are some of your favorites?
Oh man, well, let's see. That I actually got to back up. I mean, the first time Dee Snider showed up, I was like, "Are you kidding me?" And I'm playing his song, and he's singing it, and then he's singing an AC/DC song. You hear him, and I'm like, "Wow, this guy could sing some AC/DC. He sounds great." Sing. Of course, for me, I've watched, what are you going to do with your life as a kid?
Yeah.
And I'm sharing the stage. And then, I became good friends with his son, who was there a lot. He would actually fill in as a host whenever Polly couldn't do it.
Because I've played it a bunch of times, but I would say 89% of the times I'm playing Bohemian Rhapsody. That's the one song I get called. Yeah, with Rudy. I think you played it.
I had to play keyboards with you the one time.
I think I've done it probably 4 or 5 times with Rudy at the jam over the years.
That's crazy.
But I've played other stuff, and then we in the band Waiting for Monday, which maybe we should talk about.
Wow,
we had our only gig. We did opening up for the jam.
Yep.
Playing at the Whiskey,
which was great. It turned out great.
Yeah, it was so great. Thanks to, again, a lot of work that you did putting some tracks together last minute. And
I did.
And because we never even rehearsed.
Nope.
It was just like, okay, we're doing these songs. Make sure you know them.
Sound check. Let's run through 2 at sound check and do it. Yep, that's what it was. Yes. So if we want to go...
Well, before we get off of it though, it's a lot of work. It must be, because you do have to learn stuff every week.
I did. It was tough. When I first started doing it, and luckily, they provided me, with some keyboards and this and that, and then some backline stuff here and there. But I, as a keyboard player, I would program my stuff on MainStage, which is, a program people use for keyboards.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of times, I'm on the road. I was still playing with I had the Tiger Band at the time. And they're like, we're doing these songs, and then such and such is going to come and play keyboards, and so is going to come and play keyboards too. So then I find myself programming sounds on the airplane, or I'm in the hotel room, or learning the songs.
Right.
That's a great gig. It helped me hone my craft when it comes to certain things. And plus they were like, hey man, you want to sing these songs? I'm like, great. It's perfect for me. Cause I'm trying to become a better singer at the same time. So,
which is funny to me if you hear you sing.
Whatever.
Good luck with that, man. You're pretty good. I don't know how much better you're going to get, but
I don't know. I don't know about that.
Check him out on YouTube. It's walterino.com.
I'm actually working on my website, so I still don't have a website, but it will be walterinomusic.com.
Cool. Excellent.
But I did start a YouTube channel, so check that out too.
Yeah, I wanted to talk about that too, because you, I guess really quick, there's so many things to talk about, and I don't want to keep you here all night.
Oh, it's whatever.
Since you brought it up though, the YouTube channel.
Yeah, I basically started that. I started one under my studio name, but I never did anything with it. A YouTube channel. There's one video of me doing a cover of Butch Walker's song.
Right.
But
but you do a lot of covers, like just by yourself, playing all the instruments.
I just started, yeah.
It's super cool.
March 1st, I moved into my new studio space in North Hollywood, and then and then the pandemic hit and shut everything down a week and a half later. So I'm like, well, what am I going to do?
Mm-hmm.
So, as experiment, I said, oh, maybe just lay down a cover of so I could figure out my room. I could figure out where I want to put drums and this and that, and try to figure out what I like. So I did Men at Work song. I did Overkill, and I played every instrument and sang it and this and that. And people were like, what the, I got some great reaction from people, even people back home in Pittsburgh. They're like, I didn't know you did all that. Which was, and I haven't, I haven't touched a saxophone in, forever. I would mess around with it once in a while, but I was never good at it, except for concert band in high school and stuff like that.
Right.
So it was fun for me. And then next thing you know, someone's like, well, why don't you, people are like, what are you going to do next? What are you going to do next? I'm like, oh, I guess I got to do something next, and then I did a King's X song, and people were like, oh my goodness, whatever. And So it's hard for me to find time to really do it because I'm really bad at editing video. It takes me a long time to.
Right.
I don't even know what I'm doing. I throw everything in iMovie and just kind of do it. But
yeah, it's cool. I mean, one of them I saw. I think everything was pretty static. Just
that's when I
like it's fascinating because you have to watch it over and over. Let's watch him do this time.
Really, you do that?
I think it's. I mean, I don't. I'm saying one would. I don't have that kind of time. I don't have any gigs right now. What am I talking about? But also the covers that you pick are pretty. It's super eclectic and pretty awesome. You did the Tears for Fears tune.
Yeah,
so cool. It had Jim Wheeler on it too. Right?
Yeah, because I don't have a soprano sax, and that's my first collaboration when it came to.
And you did one with Zach Throne as well.
Zach, we did that song, that Rainbow song, or whatever, Since You've Been Gone song.
Yeah,
and then Coco and I just did one. The Zombies song.
Yeah.
So I mean, I want to do more, but I have a young kid, and so it's been hard.
So how long does it take you, minus the video editing? How much just to do the song?
Oh, if I know the song, I'll track it in. I don't know. I mean, I don't spend a lot of I did it so I could practice getting things done quickly.
Mm-hmm.
So when it comes to mics and if I wanted to play bass, I want to make sure I know what I'm doing. So that's kind of why I did it at first, just as an experiment. And so if I knew the song, like that first song, I did everything in one night. King's X song, I did everything in one night, but it took me about 3 days to practice the drums because I before I even tried recording it, because I never played drums on it.
And it's not super easy.
No,
that one was challenging.
So some of the songs, I mean, I did a Toad the Brett Sprocket song, which I've known all my life. So
that song.
Yeah, so I laid it down every part at maybe 4 hours tracking all the instruments, and then I would take it home and mix it the next morning. On my laptop while my kid's asleep, and then, but I would film, I use my phone and film myself doing every part.
Right.
And so, that's been fun.
Yeah. It's cool. I mean,
so if
what else are we going to do?
If there's something you want to hear, maybe you and I could do a song.
Oh, that'd be fun.
There you go.
And
I gave you the call.
Finally.
So yeah, all you listeners out there, all three of you, I'm kidding.
Yeah, exactly.
All three of you guys out there.
I know you're being too kind.
What do you want to hear me and Eric do?
Yes. Awesome. You can email fanmail@divebarrockstar.com.
There you go.
Or Facebook harass me. I don't care.
There you go.
Call me.
Of course, I'm playing bass on it, so.
No, that'd be fun though. Because I'm also multi-instrumentalist. I don't do it live like you do. That's the thing. Like I do a lot of library stuff. I just did a bunch of yacht rock stuff, and I did a bunch of metal stuff,
Dude.
So I got my Strat over here,
there you go.
My telly there. So,
I see it.
Like, I'm not, but I'm still not the kind of guy that's like gonna get on stage. I'll stay in here where I can take a few takes to get the parts, but I haven't been ballsy enough to get out and do anything. I mean, when I used to play my original band, I used to play guitar. I played acoustic guitar and then had a band behind me, but
there you go.
Which I hope to do again because I got to play something. Even if I have to book my own gig now, I don't know what to do. I don't know where it'll be, but
luckily I started doing that, 2015, Lucky Strike was the only thing that was happening on Wednesday nights. So I decided, at that point, I'm going to start doing my originals again.
Cool.
So I took a bunch of the old songs that I used to have with my old band, and I'm actually writing some new stuff right now, actually. Okay. But I got Joe Travis on drums, and Shane was on bass, and we started playing, and people would show up. It was great on a Monday night, on down in North Hollywood or something at Skinny's or somewhere.
That's a cool spot.
Or Molly Malone's or something we've done. So it was really fun for a while because I was like, man, I get to play some music. I'm not, not to make any money, but I get to sing my own songs again for a while.
Yeah,
it was great.
Something writers have to do. Like for me, there's just nothing that feels better than getting out and singing your own songs. Well, maybe there's things that maybe he's playing in front of 80,000 people or something, with a band that you love. That could be feel better, but there's just something we have to do, You know what I mean?
I mean, it's a scary thing.
Yeah.
because, it's intimidating, like you said, and there's a self-consciousness that you get, especially like, again, being the network that we're in, and people would show up. Yeah. And then you're playing in front of so-and-so, and it's like, oh my gosh, they actually came out to hear my songs. Yeah. And hopefully they like it, that type of thing. So yeah, I'm really trying to do that now that there's time. I mean, I've just finished a song that I'm really happy about, and I'm trying to mix it. So I could mix other people's music all day and be fine, but when it comes to my own, I can't do it.
I think especially if you're singing it, because you get to you're subconsciously hearing things in your voice that you don't like, and you're not going to mix it right.
It's one of those things.
I mean, I run into the same thing. It's like,
but unfortunately, I can't afford to pay anyone to do it.
I know, so we do it.
So I have to do it right now. So hopefully, in the next couple months, I might release some stuff.
Yeah. Cool. Well, there's a couple of songs I wanted to talk about on the Waiting for Monday record.
There you go.
That we've done. There's been a couple of episodes about it with Rudy in August so far, and Joe Travers actually was wonderful. We didn't really talk much about the record, but he's going to be next week's episode. So, anyways, and that's the band, me and you and those guys. But you ended up producing the whole thing, and
did I?
And it sounds great.
Well, thanks.
But you also wrote a couple of songs, starting with One More Round, right? That was what I wanted to talk about.
Yeah, that's the first one I showed Rudy. Rudy came over after. He's like, I forget how it all happened. I think, was it Rudy in August, or was it Jeff Scott Soto in August? It might have been Jeff that came up to me at the Whiskey, and they're like, we got this project. We might need someone to play keyboards on. I think that's how it started. And then maybe it was Rudy. I forget.
Well, I'm dying to hear your side of the story, because Rudy's story is different from August and different from what I remember. So let's just,
when it comes to me?
No, just the whole band.
Oh,
how it all came together.
Well, I just know that August and somebody, it might have been Rudy, but it might have been Jeff.
Yeah.
Came
Jeff
up to
Scott
me.
Soto, if you've heard other episodes, he's sort of he's the A&R guy, essentially. The scout for he brought in August and Rudy.
Yeah. And they said, we might need someone to play keyboards on it, and maybe, and then it turned into, hey, do you have any songs? And it turned into whatever. And so Rudy came over, and I'm like, yeah, I might have some ideas that I've never finished. So I played him that song, Waiting for, what was it called?
One More Round.
One More Round. And I actually wrote that back in 2013. And I never finished it. I never wrote verses for it. I came up with a hook and the rest of the music, all the music for it. I demoed it in a hotel room in Oklahoma, I think, somewhere. I was on the road with Survivor, and I wrote this song because I thought I heard Jimmy Jamison. I was in the band with Jimmy Jamison. I'm like, this voice would be great for this. I started thinking maybe I can contribute some songs to, if they want to start working on stuff.
Right.
So I wrote it and came up with the hook, because I thought, One More Round, that's kind of, they're kind of known for a couple of boxing movies.
Right.
And I figured that might be kind of cool, but it also could be more universal, thinking being at a bar or whatever, One More Round. And so I thought and the riff kind of rocked a little bit, and I programmed drums on. Well, I think did I demo it? I demoed it in Logic, so I just kind of programmed drums right there and then there when I demoed it. And I had some like melodies, and I said what I gave Rudy was very rough skeleton of it, and he thought it was great. He's like, "This is awesome, man! Like, let's raise the key," because I wrote it in an A flat. I think I was in, because for my voice, I was demoing it. I remember demoing it in my hotel room, because I was holding 58, and I was trying to be really quiet because I was in a room. It's probably 3 a.m. But when I was going, "Are you ready for one more round?" I was trying to sing it really quietly, in my hotel room. Right. So that's that song, and it turned into Rudy just crushing it on. He's like, raise the key. So we put it up in B, and a minor third.
Because he's a show off. Like
I'm like, yeah. I should have said, what are you gonna do live? Anyway, But I'm really happy that song was on the record. You know,
Yeah.
I thought it rocks. It was fun. It was fun whenever you were there, and we all did all the harmonies.
Yeah, I was gonna say you did a great like breakdown video on your YouTube channel about it, where you were pulling up different vocals that we had done, and that make up the big gang vocal that that you hear on the record.
It's fun.
It was pretty cool.
Yeah, that's a fun one, and you know, I'm really happy about that one. Yeah.
And then the other one that I really love, I mean, I love them all, but Found You Now.
Yeah.
That's your song as well.
Yeah. Well, I never had lyrics for it. So lyrically, that's Rudy, or if it was Rudy and whoever writing the words. Mm-hmm. But I had the music. I had the music for years because not years, but for the band I was in, the Eye of the Tiger band, I would be getting ready to play one of the big songs. They had a big ballad called The Search Is Over. Huge song. Mm-hmm. And Jimmy's voice on that was just amazing. But before that, they would all leave stage and I would play this keyboard solo. And it was just, ridiculous. Like, you know, I played this, I had something, I always improvised it a little bit, but I always had some kind of map and I would do some things. And so it was like a 6-minute thing where they can go backstage and get changed.
Oh man.
And go get some water or this and that.
Right.
And I'm up on stage, nobody else but me. And then I would always kind of come in and cue them. And so I came up with this little riff, which turns out to be the opening riff for Found You Now. That would lead me into the intro for The Search Is Over.
Right.
And so they started hearing me do that every night. And then Jimmy started coming out early and started singing along with it on stage. And then even Cameron started doing that later too, after Jimmy. And it turned into this thing. And in a couple of times, the guitar player would come out and kind of noodle around while I was doing this riff. Mm-hmm. And it turned into that. And I started playing that for Rudy because I've always knew that I wanted to write something for Jimmy's voice for that. And see where it went, but I never finished it. So Rudy was like, "That we got to work on that. We got to work on that." So I sent him what I had, and then we went from idea to idea, and then I changed the chords for the verse, and then I was like, you know what we need at the end? We need that lighter moment. You know, we need that moment with the lighters. So I said, that's when I wrote the thing at the end. So I mean, I probably have every demo of it, like as we were in my studio, just kind of mapping it out somewhere. I should make a YouTube video on that song for
that would be awesome.
Yeah. So, but that's where that started. Even with the Babies now, I started, I've been playing with the Babies and there's another, I do this keyboard intro for what's their song? Every time I think. So they asked me to do a little bit of a keyboard thing and I started doing that. At first, I'm like, I shouldn't do that because now it's on a record. So I changed what I was doing, but because it became so ingrained in me that it's such a cool little thing that I could do in any key. Because Jimmy would sing it. After a while, we changed keys for Jimmy's voice for some of the songs,
right?
And then, but then whenever Cameron came back in, we went back to the original keys. So, but it's one of those things like it's such an easy little 4, 5, 6 turnaround little riff,
right?
That I thought, it was great. No matter what key is in, I could transpose it no matter what I was doing. So that's why I started doing it with the Babies. And it's like, but now we recorded the song and changed it. And so.
Well, now you're just begging people to ask you, hey, what's that from? Oh, it's Waiting for Monday.
Yeah, there you go.
heart's beating fast, wanting to make your smile, and this moment last. Dancing with you, I slowly bring you close. I whisper it's you I need the most. I know this is meant to be. I found you now, I'll never let you go. I'll live life letting you know that I'll never find that look in your eye, the one that makes it all right. And it doesn't get better than you be forever, and seeing you put your hand in mine.
And that's such a fun record to make. I mean, they're like, who do you want on drums? I said, well, if I'm going to be any part of this, I'm going to call Travers.
Yeah.
And I sent him all the rough tracks. I remember sending, I'm like, this is what I love about Joe and why I love working with him. Again, and if it wasn't for Al Kim, I wouldn't know Joe Travers. So I got a shout out to Al because Al had this great bar up in Valencia called Liquid Volume for a while that he was working at. And
Al Kim, another bass player,
a great bass player. And next thing you know, he had me playing with Joe Travers, and Joe and I have been friends ever since. Anyways, I sent Joe all of the songs with click track so he could kind of get to know it. And we showed up. We recorded it we recorded drums at Shane's studio, Blue Suede Studios, right up the street. And Joe's like, I didn't get the chance to listen to any of it. So he's like, let's just play through it. I'm going to make notes. And this is why Joe is the greatest, because he's a musical monster.
Yeah.
And he played everything what was supposed to be. You know, there's a couple of things where I was talking in his ear. I'm like, make sure you hit the riff on, hit this on the 4 or whatever, the fill or the hits.
Mm-hmm.
And one of my funnest memories in the studio was just tracking him, because what's with the song that you wrote that I totally changed the feel of and ruined it for you? What's that?
Pick Your Lies.
Pick Your Lies.
Yeah.
And at the end where I'm like, just go off. You know, I said, you know what? We finished tracking it. And he would read his little. He has a way of writing down what he needs to do, and his own way. And and I learned so much from him that day. Because he listened to it once, played it again. All right, listen to it twice. All right, let's do it. Yeah. And then he would nail it. Yeah. And you came in. You guys came in.
Right. Yeah.
So,
but I've worked with Joe before too. So yeah, he's a monster. He's a monster. And I mean, he plays Zappa. So. Our little songs are not a big deal.
Exactly. But even on the bridge of Found You Now, he's like, I got an idea, because he wasn't sure what he was going to do, and he's like, he does that little open hi-hat thing and hits the snare and tom, and he's like, I'm taking this right off. I forget who he said it was. What's her name? Not Joni Mitchell. A Ricky Lee Jones type thing. Oh. And so he, on the bridge, when the string or when the orchestra part happens, he's like, I'm going to do this. And it's like, it was perfect. I was like, I can't believe this guy. So it was one of those great moments, and he did all the songs in 2 days. He did 6 in one day and then 5 in the next.
Because we couldn't afford him for any longer than that.
No. And thank God for him, because he just came and his attitude's always great. Yeah. He crushed it.
And that's why you hire guys like that. It's going to save you money in the end. Just pay a little extra money and get the guy who knows what the hell he's doing, and then in the studio, you know what I mean?
And I take pride in knowing how to edit drums and everything on Pro Tools, and there's so much that I didn't have to do with him, because he's so great. Yeah. It's awesome.
You mentioned the orchestral stuff, which we could probably talk forever about, but one of the shows that you did was Rating the Rock Vault.
Oh, that's not an orchestra show.
Oh, okay.
No, that's a great show. That's a different show. Rating the Rock Vault is awesome. I got called because Robin McCauley is in that.
Gotcha.
And that started off, I guess, I don't know the exact history, but I know Doug Aldridge and some people were involved with that initially. But it became a huge hit show in Vegas.
But what I wanted to ask you about is, it also said that it ran in Branson.
Yes.
Did you play those shows?
I did.
So what did you see? My wife is from Springfield, just 40 minutes away.
Great.
And so I've been to Branson a couple times.
I love Branson.
It's the strangest experience in a lot of ways. And I wondered what your take on Branson was. The show is interesting, but really what I want what I want to know is, what do you think of Branson?
I actually really like Branson.
Especially with a rock group.
It was different. I don't know if people, I mean, I went there the second time it showed up. And they would use a theater, and then do it for a week or whatever, or 2 weeks. And I was the second one. I didn't play keyboards the first time. I only played keyboards for that show. So Robin McCulley was my contact for that. But if it wasn't for Survivor, if it wasn't for that, I wouldn't be playing with the Babies right now, because John Bisaha, who's the singer for the Babies, happened to be one of the singers to fill in for the Rating the Rock Vault show. And so he remembered me and asked me to play keyboards for them. The orchestra shows are completely different. I got called to fill in. It was Mark Slutsky, drummer, who I knew before I even moved here. He called me to see if I could fill in on keyboards for this orchestral show that Curtis Kieber was MD for. I don't know if you know who he is. He plays with Grace Potter. Oh, now cool, amazing, gig. That's called A Night of Symphonic Rock. The producer's a guy named Stephen Cook. He's out of Dallas, Texas. He produces these shows, and he has a bunch of different shows. One's called A Night of Symphonic Rock. One's called Rewind, music of the 80s. One's called Cirque Musica, which is a holiday show that happens every year. Not this year, but so it's, to make a long story short, orchestra stuff. And I'll get back to the Branson question in a second. Cool. The way it works is Slutsky called me for that gig. The conductor who was on that show, and that was the Night Symphonic Rock. I had Lou Graham singing. Yeah. It had Mickey Thomas singing. It had
crazy
Terry Nunn from Berlin singing, and Robin McCulley. And so the four of them would be on stage. We'd play their music, and it was great. And the conductor from that show flew in from New York City because he does Broadway stuff. He remembered me because he's like, that guy knows how to play keyboard sounds. He knows how to program sounds and get them right. So he called me to do this other gig, this Cirque Musica gig, because they need someone to program keyboards and get some soundscape music just for these circus performers while the orchestras play. So then they started trusting me. In the producers like, can you score? I said, sure, I'll give it a try. Which I haven't done since I was probably in high school orchestra or whatever. And I never really, and so I just learned how to do it. And then,
what's the process of learning how to orchestrate? That's really funny.
I'll
give it a try. I mean, you're talking about an orchestra symphony.
Yeah. So 60, they told me what the pieces were, what instruments were going to be, how many viola players, how many cellos, how many this and that. So I and they were like, at first it was like, known songs. So I did they wanted to do Freebird with the orchestra, and it was great. And it was fun. Cause I'm like, okay, what can the timpani do? What can the, can the percussionists do? Cause by that point I've played with the 60-piece orchestra already, not doing it. Right. But I got to know what to expect. I started thinking, well, some of the stuff has strings. Like I forget what song I did that already had strings. So I'm like, I'll just cop the lines and transcribe that, which I've done, which we've, had to do. But then, some of the stuff is like, let's add stuff. Let's add, little things here, or let's edit this, or what if the strings, like on Freebird, for instance, I've had the whole string line. Have you ever played Freebird on bass? Yeah. Like the exact notes.
I'm from Denver, man.
Like the exact notes.
Maybe I don't probably.
I transcribe that for the because I have to write all the parts for every band member, the band that gets hired, because sometimes not the same bass player would be there. Right. So I transcribe the bass line note for note, and it's amazing. Yeah. He never plays anything twice the same. Wow. And then there's that run that goes do 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 do. So I had every string part do that, but then later on, like as it's building even more, I'm thinking, well, what if I counterpoint? What if I do this? So bass is going up, and they're all doing that, and then I think I added like cymbal swells or snare swells or whatever. So it's one of those things you try to hear it, and then and at the same time, as I'm charting or orchestrating it, you're programming it onto the thing and putting the sound on a either Logic or whatever program, so you can kind of hear what you're doing,
right?
And that's what and then you send that demo version to the band so they can kind of hear what's going on.
Got you.
So yeah, it was such a great learning experience. It's a lot of work, and but it was great because they were like, well, last year I couldn't do the tour, but they were like, well, why don't you write 2 pieces for it? So for the Cirque Musica tour, so I wrote 2 pieces that I just came up with. And then even the Star Unicycle guy hit me up privately, and he said, "Can you write something for my show that I'm doing in Russia?"
Oh, wow!
So I wrote a 3-section piece, which I love. I played all the instruments for it, and he wanted to record it, but he also so that he could use it as a recording, but he also needed the charts for it so that the 27-piece band in Russia could play it. And it was great, and and it's one of those things. I'm really happy and proud that I could play with Eagles of Death Metal and whoever else, LA Guns or whatever, but also and play the Whiskey. But at the same time, I'm learning orchestration and how to chart and whatever. You know what I mean? So it's one of those things, trial by fire, and it worked, and they liked it, so they kept on hiring me to do it. So
wow, well, that's amazing, man. I think it's fair to say you're probably a musical genius.
I'm not.
And well, you are in my mind anyways. And really appreciate you coming on the podcast and talking to me all about it.
I appreciate it too, man.
It's been really fun.
I was going to say, did you run out of real musicians to interview? And
I mean, we're getting to the bottom of the barrel, man.
Seriously. No. I mean, who turned it down? Who said no? And now you have to call me. I appreciate it. And, it's been great getting to know you these past few years.
And that's what I was going to say too. We don't know each other that well.
No.
I'd heard of you. Actually, the first time I ever met you, I was really drunk, and we were
Where was that?
Residuals. And
oh my God, that was that.
And you were playing in the live band karaoke.
Yeah, karaoke.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And a friend of mine was like, Walter Eno's playing at Residuals. We got to go.
Who said that? Who was it? I can't remember.
Oh, well, Valerie.
Oh, yeah.
Val.
Yeah, all those people.
Yeah.
The Disney crew,
Yeah,
I thought,
exactly. Yeah.
Did you come over to Disney once when I was playing with, was that Rudy? I was playing bass for what was that band called? With Todd McCool. Brenda. What was that band called? Instant Replay. I was the bass player for that band.
That's right. In fact, I saw you play.
Yeah, but I didn't know you.
No, because I was doing Mad T.
You were doing Mad T,
and
I didn't know anything. Pat Leon asked me if I wanted to try out for Mad T, and I was like, I don't do makeup, dude. Sorry.
No, that was a learning lesson for me as well.
I said I can't do it, but I was, if it wasn't for we're supposed to be done, but if it wasn't for Pat Leon, who I ended up on a gig somehow at the Lighthouse in Hermosa, who was on that? A guy named Todd McLeod. Todd
McLeod. Yeah, I used to play with him at Poncho's a lot.
Yeah. Anyway, if it wasn't for somebody, Jenna Oberle recommended me to Pat Leon or something like that. And if it wasn't for Pat, he's like, well, why don't you play we need someone to fill in on guitar for Disney. Robert Stevens, I guess, couldn't do something or somebody. So next thing I know, I'm playing guitar for Thomasina.
Yeah,
and then
Thomasina,
and then next thing you know, they find out I play keyboards. So I had to fill in on keyboards for Thomasina. And then I think I played, it became a different, I never jumped into the Disney hole.
Right.
But I liked
the fact. We both we dipped our toe in.
I love, it was great. It was just fun to get the call.
And there's a lot of really cool, interesting people and great musicians.
Amazing musicians.
Yeah. And well, that's the other thing about you as far as being on the show is that you're such an example of really what a working musician looks like. Ugh. It's not festivals for 80,000 people every day.
No.
And it's also not crappy bar gigs every day, but it's a fun mix of all of them. And if you can figure out how to enjoy every one of those things, at least enough to make your living, then I don't know, somehow we all keep going. When there's no pandemic going on, somehow we all pay the rent.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
So it's an honor to have you on.
I appreciate
and
it.
to get to know you. And that was the point. We don't really know each other that well. We kind of just really got to know each other late, with the Waiting for Money thing,
Exactly.
Monday thing. But, I can't wait till things get started again and we can do some more music together.
Likewise.
Well, we're at least going to do a cover on your YouTube channel.
Let's do it. We'll talk. We'll figure it out.
Okay.
And then I'll tell you what I think about Branson. All right.
Oh, shit.
Branson was great. That's all I can say about that.
Okay, perfect.
Yeah.
Dive bar rock star.
Man, what a great dude. And just the ultimate utility guy. And if you've never heard that term, by the way, it's just another name for multi-instrumentalist. And I think I made a Freudian slip there when I said waiting for money instead of waiting for Monday. I'm not sure. I don't know. I'm just saying buy a Waiting for Monday record because we need the help. Any little help would be great at this point. And that really goes for all musicians. It's getting a little challenging doing this show in this continued COVID shutdown situation because, my original intent was to pass on some lessons and the stuff that had been passed on to me when I got into the industry and, all the experiences that I've had. It's sort of my duty, I think, to pass those to the next generation or to anyone who wanted to get into the music industry. But now that there is no music industry and, it just keeps on going much longer than I think any of us thought in the beginning. It's just, it's sort of shifting where I feel like the show should go and turning it more into a tribute to these guests and to these great musicians and guys that have had really great careers. And, because I have a lot of admiration for anyone who will take on music as a living because it's not easy and it's not always fun and it can be the most incredible thing in the world, but it's hard. And now it's impossible and it's the holidays and we can't do what we love and we can't spend money, we can't be making money the way that we like to. And it's a hard time to be struggling like this. So my heart goes out to all my fellow musicians and I hope you're enjoying the show. And I'm going to, continue to pay tribute to musicians and music people everywhere. So I hope you had fun.
I'm a dive bar rock star.
Wow, you've made it to the end. I'm hoping it's because you completely enjoyed yourself and are now filled with knowledge and inspiration to move forward with your dreams. If that is the case and you would like to stay informed of new episodes, live events, and general news, please go to divebarrockstar.com and sign up for the mailing list. If you have any questions, comments, corrections, or complaints about anything you hear on the show, please email me at fanmail@divebarrockstar.com and you may even end up on the show. We at the Dive Bar Rockstar podcast, with all of our hearts, thank you for listening, and remember, it's all about dreams.